Hello, hello, friends. We are live on Wednesday, March 8th, 2023. Say hello when you arrive, whether you are here live or whether you are catching the replay. I just love to hear from you. So, want to make sure that I look okay. I don't know. I was just sitting here. I read before I go to yoga, and then it's my morning routine. And then I wake up, I go to yoga. And this morning has just been like so beautiful. I had a great morning with my daughter, which does not always happen. We even stretched a little bit on the floor, in the living room this morning, me and my 7-year-old, and just kind of starting our day, eating some fruit and talking to each other about, what we're going to do today. Dropped her off at school, and I just feel like every moment this morning has been just so rich with I don't know, it could be so average. You could see it as so average. It's a morning like any other. I mean, I didn't have to fight with my daughter to get her awake this morning, but was that maybe partially my own energy? I got to connect with people at yoga. I got to give people hugs. I got to talk about my engagement. There are people who are there who are, really excited for me. And, it could be, I could see this as just a day like any other. But it's not though. Or is it? And I think that is actually the perfect way to start today's transmission, because today we have the sun shifting into the 22nd gene, and this is one that is, when you look at the gene key, it can be very long, it can be very dense, it can be very esoteric. And so I want to kind of translate this for you today, because it's actually very, very simple. The 22nd gene, it's the way of graciousness, and the shadow of this is dishonor. Now, this isn't to dishonor, your family, or to dishonor, whatever. It's to dishonor your own self, to dishonor your own experience. So we're talking about are you tired and you are just pushing yourself through something? Are you feeling some kind of way? Are you having an emotional experience and you're not acknowledging that in yourself? You are dishonoring your own emotions, your own intuition, your own experience. And I loved this one line in this, this isn't the Gene Key book, it's the 64 Ways, but they talk about the 6 essential human wound patterns here, and that the 22nd gene is one that really highlights this for us. And so those patterns are repression, denial, shame, rejection, guilt, and separation. And so anytime that we're feeling a negative feeling, or we're I don't know, so many times, think of any time that you've dishonored your own or bypassed your own feelings about something. At the root of it, it likely was in one of these 6 core patterns, right? Repression, denial, shame, rejection, guilt, separation. We all feel those things. We all experience those things. And so the first step toward improving your experience, the first step toward that not being, whatever it is that you are attempting to bypass, in order for us to actually not just bypass it and smush it down, but actually work on it, resolve it, we're going to have to acknowledge it first. And as I am saying all of this, and the gift of this, right, the highest level of this, the siddhi, the essence, right, we're talking about grace. Y'all, this is my book. I wrote this book in 2018, yes. And that's essentially what my book talks about. Now I'm rewriting this year. It's not available at this time, but there are 6 steps that I write, into this book. And the first one or one of the first ones, is we have to acknowledge it. Like, we have to acknowledge the pain that we're experiencing, and we have to acknowledge at least our partial role in it, whether that's because we're accepting less, because we don't believe that we can have more, whatever, right? But it's the acceptance of the situation, right? Right? And another way to say that is to not dishonor the way that you feel about this situation. And so the 22nd gene is really here to highlight that for you, not to like poke at your fucking wounds or make you feel bad about yourself or anything, but just to get you to acknowledge, hey, you're not feeling right. Like, if you had a fever, would you ignore it? Like, if you were vomiting, would you ignore it? You know, if you broke a bone, would you ignore it? Or would you like, oh no, like, I'm going to be just fine? Like, no, you would go get your bones set. You would go get, whatever you need to do to resolve that issue. Our emotional state is just as important. Our emotional state really does affect so many other things in our life. Now, what dishonor also wants you to recognize, right? What this is the shadow side, but this is our role in things. And so when we take that a step further and we're stepping into the gift, we're giving ourselves grace, but we're acting through graciousness. Okay. So what does this mean? When we recognize that we don't always feel great, and that there are situations or things that are asked of us, or that we react in ways, we behave in ways, we do things that are a result of or are a reaction to our wounding patterns, right? Like denial, repression, shame, etc. Okay. And so when we can acknowledge that in ourselves, we can take that a step further and extend graciousness to others, right? We recognize that not everybody is out to get us, that not everybody is feeling great all the time, and that sometimes just extending a little kindness and a little empathy could really change the world, right? I loved this line in here. He says, we have to know the patterns of our own wounding, and then we can disentangle our reactions of those from those of others, right? When other people are reacting to us, more often than not, it's their own wounding that is causing that reaction, right? And so graciousness is something that, I mean, you feel it when you're with someone. Like I can think of a couple of people in particular, and I'm sure that you know people in your own life that are this way too, and they just exude this energy of like graciousness, that they just like love life, that they love people, that they love themselves, and know they're not perfect, and they don't expect anyone else to be perfect, but it's this just like this energy that exudes from them, this energy of just like reverence for themselves and for their life and for the moment. And that's really what the 22nd gene would like us to do, right? To extend that love to ourselves a little bit more, and to extend that love and that recognition that people are like struggling internally. People are repressing their own shame, guilt, fear of rejection, all of that stuff all the time. And it affects the way that they behave and, of course, interact with us. And so a lot of the time, people are not, right? It has nothing to do with us. And so extending that grace to ourselves, extending that grace to others. And then we have, right, the essence of this gene. And I feel like I've been really feeling this more and more lately. And it is just, I don't know, it's like communing with your higher self, communing with that sense of oneness in like small, quiet moments, right? It doesn't have to be these big, epic, like revelations, right? It doesn't have to be like a burning bush fucking situation for you to have that moment. Like moments before I went live this morning, I'm sitting here no joke, y'all. I'm sitting here like sobbing in my chair, and not like sobbing, okay, but like quietly weeping maybe, because I'm just like reflecting on how great this morning has been. Oh, it's happening again, y'all. Like, I have this wonderful, like, safe home. I get to go to this community nearby where people like care about me and I care about them, and I get to connect with people, and I got to drink this tea and it was warm and good, and I got to hug my daughter and like move my body, and I have a body and it is capable, and I'm just like, there are so many reasons to have that, just like gratitude. I get to listen to music. This music is so good. I get to hang out with you. What? I don't even know where you are right now, and we get to hang out. What is this world? What is this reality? We have so much to be grateful for. And isn't it so much like such a better use of your energy and use of your time? And don't you feel so much better? And I don't know, I feel like when I'm allowing myself to be in this state. You're in the Netherlands. That's amazing. I'm in Florida. I don't know, some people might call it amazing. I don't know. It's Florida, that's for sure. But I feel like when we are in this state, when we allow ourselves to have this reverence for life and for ourselves and for, what we've created for ourselves, we get to create more of that. We get to see the ripple effect of that. Like, other people get to feel and experience that. And I don't know, in the most basic sense, it's like, when I focus on the problems, when I focus on what's not working, or fully like pretend like it's not even happening, right? Fully pretend like you're not worried or anxious, or you're not repressing things. You don't feel guilty about something. You don't, whatever. Like, we have to address those things in order for us to, move into, we have to acknowledge at the very least, but we can't like latch onto them. It's like, oh, like I'm in my yoga teacher training right now, and we're talking a lot about like the meditative, like inner voice, and just kind of relating to it differently. And of course, y'all know this is like my bread and butter. I'm like so here for these conversations. So it's awesome getting to do that in a group, where we're just talking about philosophy all the time. But we were talking about, the quieting of the mind, and when your inner critic or your inner voice or whatever wants to rise up and talk about, oh, you shouldn't have done that, or you should feel bad about that, or whatever. And whether it's something that needs to be fixed or not fixed or whatever, right? But it's that like self-judgment that you just get to like, oh, there's that voice again, right? Rather than making it mean something and attaching to it and like identifying with it. It's recognizing that that is not who you are, not really, and so we can acknowledge that voice, and that is where we're no longer dishonoring ourselves without letting it define us or fixating on it or making it mean something about us, because that is not actually the truth. It's something that we have to acknowledge in order for us to no longer be like living a lie, But then when we come back into graciousness and grace, it's often like, if we are, where are those wounds again? If we're in the wounding pattern of rejection, and we're not honoring the fact that we're afraid of rejection, or that we are anxious about being rejected, then we're going to tell ourselves, oh, I'm just an introvert, or like, oh, I have enough friends, or, oh, no, I'm just like not looking for other opportunities right now, or I'm just not social, right? And none of that, are you? Or are you just completely dishonoring how you feel, which is actually afraid of rejection? And that's okay. But just because you're afraid of rejection doesn't mean it's actually true, or that there's something to dislike about you, or that there's just no way that there are 8 billion people in the world and that you're going to be rejected by all of them. It's just not, right? So when we have to acknowledge that story, that ego, in order for us to be like, oh, well, that's actually like silly. Like, that's not, I ask my clients, right? They'll tell me something and I just like, stop, right? Is that universally true? Right? So like, I don't know, whatever it is that you feel about yourself or think about yourself, like, oh, I'm bothering people. I can't email my list too often because then I'm going to be bothering them. Do you feel bothered when you get emails from people that you like legitimately signed up to get their emails? Don't you know that there's an unsubscribe link at the very bottom of every email? If they wanted to not hear from you, that they would. So if they haven't clicked that, then they want to hear from you, right? It's not universally true. You're making up a story about yourself in your head so that you don't experience one of those pains, right? Repression, denial, shame, rejection, guilt, separation. Okay. So in order for us to stop feeling these feelings, because whether you're acknowledging them or not, you are feeling the feeling, right? That's what the dishonor is all about. So it's first acknowledging and honoring how you feel and allowing yourself to look at it and process it without making it mean something about you. You have to recognize that like ego, that sense of like I and the separation, it's only like a piece of who you are. It's not really who you are at all. And so with the sun moving into 22 today, we've got the next 6 days, right? The next week to contemplate this. I mean, it's so weird sometimes. I feel like, I don't know. I wrote this book before I knew about the gene keys. I wrote this book before I had taken any formal like NLP training, right? Any formal like mindset training. And then like a year and a half later, I took a program that certified me in NLP and some other stuff. And I'm like, that's my process. That's that change work process I wrote that, right? And now I'm like opening up the 22nd gene, and I don't have this activated in my own profile, but like this journey that they're describing from like dishonor and like the shadow of like dishonoring the way that you're feeling or dishonoring the experience you believe that you're having. In order for you to get to a state of grace, which is just accepting that you're not perfect and that you're not gonna be perfect and that no one else is perfect and that they're all hurting too, and that everything would just be better if we would be a little bit more fucking kind and a little bit more empathetic to ourselves and each other. Isn't that Jerry Springer's line? Be kind to yourself and each other, right? Something like that. Anyway, I'm like very much a kid of the 90s. So that is the gene that we'll be contemplating for the next week or so. Now, we do still have a full moon going on, and what I'll do really quick is I'll just pull open the celestial events. If you want to follow me, follow along in the in my browser, then you can hop on over to twitch.tv/Mama Capricorn with an underscore at the end, or you can wait for this to be up on YouTube or Spotify in just a little bit. So I mentioned this before, we are still moving into this Jupiter Chiron conjunction. The moon has officially entered Libra. So, oh, nope, I am in Ventura, California. I have a client's chart open. Okay. Yeah, so the moon, well, in about 20 minutes. Yeah, in about 20 minutes, the moon enters Libra. So this morning we've had a little bit of a void of course situation, which is like very surprising to me because I've had a great morning, and usually void of course mornings, ooh, blah, you know, as someone who is very emotional and very emotionally sensitive, and to be honest, typically void of course moments or times where I need to like take a nap. I need to like not be around people. But I don't know, maybe I'm just like accessing this like state of grace today, which is awesome. I feel really good. Things are not perfect, but like this moment is, you know, in this moment, I get great music and I get great company and I get warm tea, and like, what is there other than this moment? Nothing, absolutely nothing. So we've got this Jupiter Chiron conjunction. It's moving closer and closer. Like I said, it will be in exact conjunction on Sunday. So my interpretation of Jupiter conjunct Chiron in Aries, especially after this triple like whammy situation that we had last week with Venus, Jupiter, and Chiron. I feel like this is very much the energy of like believing in things again, and especially believing in your ability to begin again, or like to start over, or to like do something new. I would encourage you to look and see where Aries is in your chart so that you can get a little bit more clear about this. For me, this is in the 11th house. And so this is very much within the realm of like, who do I want to build things with? Who do I want to create a better future with? Who do I want to build our future community with? So it's, yes, friend groups, but you know, it being on that like 5th, 11th house axis, I find that like chilling and hanging friends are more in the 5th house, where the 11th house, hopefully you do get along with them, but it's not always necessary. Sometimes we have allies that are not like our BFFs, but we are in alignment and we're building something with them. And so for me, that is where I'm focusing this attention and energy right now, which means I'll probably will want to get out of my house and do something different on Sunday. Maybe try to connect with people from my yoga studio, or even try to connect with some of the people in my yoga teacher training, because a lot of them are people that I feel would be great future collaborators. So the moon will be in Libra today. An air moon is not necessarily a super like feely moon, especially Libra. Okay, with the moon being in Libra, it being still in relative fullness, and then us having the sun in the 22nd gene, this is a really good time to have a conversation with someone, or if you're not in a place where you want to have a conversation with them, this would be a good time at least to like sit with yourself and maybe do some journaling or do some contemplating about like any perceived injustice, any perceived lack of fairness, any perceived feelings like, if you feel like you are in lack, or feel like you're not getting what you're supposed to have, or you feel like things are, you know, imbalanced in some way, if you feel like you're being withheld from, this would be a good time to contemplate that and ask yourself who it is that's supposed to owe that to you, or like where you're supposed to get that from, or yeah, I don't know. Because this of course can relate to you in so many different ways. If you'd like to discuss this further, and this is something that you're like, ooh, we're kind of hitting on something, send me a DM. I would love to book a session with you, or see if you are maybe ready to jump into my incubator. We start in a couple of weeks, and this is a deep dive into your gene keys to talk about how to grow into yourself as a human and really ground yourself in your purpose and open your heart to love and opportunities and possibilities. And then how to take all of that and turn it into something that feels like a contribution to your community and allows you to live a fully prosperous life. And so it's like that vocational fulfillment and emotional, spiritual fulfillment. So it's going to be a really good time, and also probably a very emotional time, just like spoiler alert. But it's going to be 3 months. We're going through the spring. And so we start the week of March 21st. If you've got questions, make sure you send me a DM, or you can just tap the link in any of my bios and you'll be able to get the info and hop in. So this being Wednesday, this is definitely a good day to reach out and ask your questions, because it is the day of Mercury. And Mercury, of course, is all things information. So if there is a piece of information that you're looking for, or if there is a question that you would like answered, let your girl know. So let's see. What else have we got going on for the week? Anything interesting? Yeah, we'll talk about those when we get there. But I think that the big thing to keep in mind right now is, how can you honor your experience even more? How can you be real with yourself about what you're feeling, what you're experiencing? And how can you extend more grace to yourself and to the people around you? How can you give the people around you more permission to be soft with themselves and to be more accepting of themselves? When we extend acceptance, even when it doesn't mean you have to like people. Let me be clear. Oh my gosh, before I just like totally mislead you and then send you on your way. Extending grace doesn't mean that we have to love people. It doesn't mean that we have to like them or be friends with them, or right? It means that we love and accept them as another human being who is also not perfect. And where I find, this is of course easier for me to do within like my communities that I'm like safe in and I've built, and with my, family and loved ones, but like, well, some of my family. But I really am working hard on doing this with like global leaders, or like even leaders of my like country and community. It's like really hard for me to extend grace to Pete Buttigieg and AOC right now. Do your fucking jobs, y'all. Right? Love you. I know it's a lot of pressure. I know that the old guard has their rules or whatever, but they're going to die soon and we're not. So tighten up, fam. I know that obviously Pete Buttigieg and AOC are like subscribers of the daily transmission, right? So thank you so much for listening. I'll be back here tomorrow. I love y'all so much. The daily transmission, no joke, is one of the best points of my entire day. That's why it's in the morning, because the morning is my best time of day. And I love it. I love y'all so much. This is something that's really awakening something in me, and I'm just really happy to get to share this with you wherever you are in the Netherlands or elsewhere. And one last thing, if you want to subscribe to some of my like written work, you can go head over to my link in bio and subscribe to my Substack. So I'm writing at least one post a week there right now, but I imagine I probably will end up like putting out a lot more content there because I feel like I have so much to say now that the floodgates are open. So loving you to the moon and back, and I will see you back here tomorrow at 9 a.m. for another daily transmission. Bye, friends.